Hello, my name is Lucy Chenault with Teens in the Driver's Seat Teen Advisory Board. Thank you for attending today's session. Here are some tips to help make this session a great experience. We are committed to saving lives and reducing crashes on our roads and request each participant to commit to connecting to our event from a safe location. Please do not connect while driving or operating any form of machinery. First, notice the panel to the right with several tabs. Here's where you can chat, ask questions, retrieve handouts, and see answered polls. The chat is public and you are encouraged to say hello and answer any prompts that appear there. The presenter invites questions. Type those into the Q&A window anytime and we will answer those at the end of the presentation. A prize drawing for a $50 gift card will be held at the end of the session. Make sure you stay on for that. Finally, at the end of the conclusion of the webinar, please complete a very quick survey for this session, which will help the presenter and us improve in the future. Enjoy the session.
Hey Teens in the Driver's Seat members. We are students from James County High School and we chose Teen Maze as our favorite outreach activity to talk about today. Here we have a few members to discuss a few of the key parts involved in Teen Maze.
The beginning of Teen Maze is the skit. The skit has two parts, the party scene and the crash scene. The party scene includes a bunch of teens trying to have a good time, but ends in tragedy. The teens wanted to have fun, but their way of having fun was doing illegal activities. They thought that doing drugs and drinking alcohol would make them seem cooler and they would have a better time, when in reality it leads to serious consequences. When a guy and his pregnant girlfriend left the party with a few friends to get more alcohol, they got in a serious car crash. While that was happening, the police raided the party, resulting in many arrests, the finding of an unconscious person, and then later death. The actions of the drunk driver in the car crash caused the pregnant girl and her unborn child to be killed immediately at the time of the crash. In addition, many others were harmed mentally and physically. This could have been prevented if they would have called someone else to pick them up, or if they have not have touched illegal substances at all. This goes to show that your actions result in beneficial or harmful consequences, so you decide which one you want.
There are many different stations within Teen Maze. Some of the most influential stations include juvenile court, the TDS stations, substance abuse, teen pregnancy, STDs, bullying, suicide, etc. We have others coming up to cover about the juvenile court and the TDS station that has drunk goggles. In our station, talking about substance abuse, the students are given an addiction and shown the effects and what happened with visual graphics and many different real-life stories of people who are or have been addicted to different substances. It's a very realistic and intimidating environment for our teens, but it's very straightforward and doesn't sugarcoat the effects of drugs and the painful reality of what happens to people who get addicted to these substances. In a teen pregnancy station, they go through the whole process of having a child and what you need to do to support it and the money it costs you effectively take care of it and provide for a child. They make a realistic presentation that follows up from the moment the child is born till they get old enough to take care for themselves. It gives you an idea of how hard and costly it is really to have a child, especially at such a young age. It provides teens with information they need to realize that having a child, about having a baby doll to dress up and take pictures of. But it's a full-time responsibility that is hard, and most teens aren't ready for that yet. One of the most influential stations is the STD stations. Here they talk about many different types of STDs, how they are contracted, how easily they spread. They also give a presentation on how sleeping with one person or many gives you many chances of getting an STD. They make it very realistic and almost scary how many people are exposed to them. At the end of their presentation, they give out handouts for the local STD center to give teens a private, non-judgmental place to go and receive help easily. I'll be explaining this bullying suicide station. Here they talk to our teens about how real and present bullying is and many different forms it happens in. They give facts of how much it affects the majority of the population and how bad it is within teens today. They show us all that leads to teen suicides and how dangerous bullying really is. Throughout these stations, they show the danger of the actions we take and how what we do to others affect them.
One of my most favorite activities associated with Teens in the Driver's Seat was during Teen Maze. In this activity, we had to wear goggles that would cause visual distortion, and we have to make it through the course wearing them. We had to experience how it felt when you were drunk driving. Your vision gets distorted, and you have little control over your body. Since you can barely focus on the road, you would start to panic and make a rash decision that can ruin your life and those involved. After the course, you have to do a line test with goggles on. The test measures the sobriety of an individual by having them walk in a straight line. Due to the goggles, my ability to maintain my balance was non-existent. If this is a real-life situation, I would have had a DUI arrest. You can make your own decisions, but you can't choose the consequences. Whenever you take that drink of alcohol and enter that car, remember to think about how your choices can affect your life and the life of others. The people who hurt the most are the ones who are left behind.
The courtroom scene begins with the driver of the crashed vehicle in a courtroom standing trial for his crimes. We set up our scene with a real lawyer, judge, mocktails, and an orange jumpsuit. The scene begins with the drunk driver in handcuffs and an orange jumpsuit standing in front of the judge. The defense lawyer presents her case and explains that the driver is just a young teenager who didn't know the consequences of his actions. The prosecution then presents their case, which had no mercy for the drunk teenage driver. He felt he deserved the harshest punishment available. The judge sentenced the drunk driver to a large prison sentence. The judge also found the driver guilty of vehicular homicide, manslaughter, child endangerment, and many other crimes. In reality, when you make decisions without considering the consequences, life may present you with situations that can ruin yours and other people's lives. The situation ended in tragedy and could have been easily prevented. All these students only need to take a few moments to think about their decisions and rationalize them.
Every year, there is a guest speaker who comes in and speaks to our teens about a real-life tragedy that has happened to them personally. For the last few years, we have had a woman come speak of her son. He was a senior in high school, a straight-A student, and had never even been to a high school party in his entire life. He had just saved up enough money to buy his own car. He had never had a drink of alcohol a day in his life. He was the perfect kid. And yet the day before his high school graduation, he chose to go to a party. At this party, he completely let loose. He was drinking and just didn't think about the consequences his actions were to bring. He began consuming alcohol, and by the time he knew what had happened, he had already consumed too much and he passed out. His friends laid him on his back, hoping that it would help. He had alcohol poisoning, which made him throw up to get the alcohol out of his system. When his body tried to throw up all the alcohol he had consumed, he was on his back, so he became suffocated and died. His friends later noticed that he had woken up and put him in an ice-cold bath, hoping to retrieve him. But this didn't work. They called the authorities, and the boy was pronounced dead at the scene. Because of his actions and what he did, the boy was pronounced dead at the scene. He was 18 and lost his life the night before graduation. Having his own mother come in and speak to us about this also had an impact on the students because it makes it real. The emotion is real watching her talk about the loss of her son, and it really makes you think about all the things teens do that they don't even think that will harm themselves. It is an eye-opener to see how scary and how real the consequences for the actions you make.
We chose to speak about Teen Maze because this event has impacted us all and taught us valuable life lessons. This experience has provided us with the opportunity to impact the way members of TDS and teens alike think and make better, less harmful decisions. We hope everything we have talked about today will be influential in teens' minds and their choices, so don't make the same mistake others have.
Hello and welcome. My name is Lucy Chenault, and I'm one of the TDS Teen Advisory Board members with the Teens in the Driver's Seat program. Our presenter today is Ned Minevitz on the topic of vaping and driving. Ned Minevitz, a Massachusetts native, has served as a program attorney and a TDX DOT grant advisor for the Texas Municipal Courts Education Center since November 2013, where he focuses on impaired driving and traffic issues. He received his BA in 2007 from Connecticut College in New London, Connecticut, where he majored in East Asian Studies, spending an extensive time in China after Mr. Minevitz is proficient in Mandarin Chinese. In 2013, he earned his JD from the Arizona State University College of Law, where he participated in patent clinic. In his free time, he enjoys tennis, golf, and cooking. Please help me welcome Ned Minevitz.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it may be. Glad you are here with me today. My name is Ned Minevitz. I am one of the program attorneys at the Texas Municipal Courts Education Center. We train municipal judges, clerks, and prosecutors throughout the state of Texas. And I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to present at the 2021 Teens in the Driver's Seat Summit. Today, our topic is going to be vaping and driving. I hope to give you a few little nuggets of information that you may be able to utilize in your professional and or personal life. We're going to talk about just some general information about e-cigarettes and vaping, and then some of the laws, the Texas state laws that are applicable to vaping and e-cigarettes. And then finally, how vaping has what impact vaping has on transportation. So this will be a quick session. I'm going to be going kind of quickly. So get your notes ready and get your popcorn ready, get your coffee ready, your soda, whatever you have. We're going to go quick, and I hope that you find it enjoyable. Okay, just a few quick facts about vaping. You can see there the picture of the individual who is enjoying or using a e-cigarette or vaping device. The E, by the way, when you hear it referred to as e-cigarette, that stands for electronic. So unlike your traditional cigarette or pipe or traditional means of getting nicotine or tobacco into the system, the e-cigarette does it electronically. And typically it will create a big cloud of vapor, as you see from the little video I have there, and you've probably all seen it in some capacity, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So it really didn't emerge until about 12, 13 years ago, and it was really meant as a smoking cessation tool, which means helping people to quit smoking traditional cigarettes. It really wasn't, the origins were not a recreational device. So its original, its reasons for being created were pure, but what it has become has been problematic for courts and law enforcement in the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, because people have been using them recreationally, sometimes people who have never smoked traditional cigarettes before. And also there is a big problem with individuals putting different things in them, perhaps illicit drugs, marijuana, cannabis, or other things, that is a public safety concern. So while it did emerge as a smoking cessation tool, it has become something that's recreational. But that doesn't mean that there aren't still folks out there that are using these as a way to try to quit traditional cigarettes. A Gallup poll in July 2019 reported that 8% of Americans said they had vaped in the past week. That's just under 1 in 10. That's a pretty large number. But the real striking thing is this third bullet down, is that 18 to 29-year-olds, approximately 1 in 5, are vaping the most. And this third bullet down right here says to me that while it was supposed to be a smoking cessation tool, because the demographic that's using these the most are our young folks, and a lot of these we presume, in the law we never want to assume anything or speculate too much, but I think given the young age, I think we can safely assume that many of these folks didn't smoke traditional cigarettes before. I don't know many 18-year-olds who are like, oh darn, I really gotta quit this lifelong habit of cigarettes I had. I'm going to switch to a vape. And the reports have indicated that many folks are starting with e-cigarettes or vapes before having never used a traditional cigarette before. I'm not going to talk too much about the negative health impacts today. I want to look at this from a legal perspective. But there is one thing I do like to mention, and that is you will often hear reports of these vaping devices causing something called popcorn lung. And you'll see a lot of reports about the negative health effects of vaping. It's tough because they are relatively new in the kind of grand scheme of medicine. It's hard to get the research out that truly shows us that these are truly bad for you. I think the tobacco companies are still arguing that cigarettes aren't proven to cause cancer. So anyways, there is something called popcorn lung, and frankly, that sounds horrific because it sounds to me like people who use e-cigarettes may get a popping sound in their lungs, but that's actually not what popcorn lung is. It really is just an inflammation, which makes it difficult to breathe. But the origin of that phrase is actually because decades and decades ago, microwave popcorn manufacturers were putting a chemical into microwave popcorn, which was causing many of the factory workers to fall ill. And what did they do? Well, they took that chemical out of microwave popcorn, and then the factory workers started improving, or there were no new cases of this popcorn lung. And I say that because we didn't see this chemical for a long time until e-cigarettes emerged again, and they're putting it, I think it's called dilactyl, something like that. And they started putting that in the vapors, the juices that go into an electronic cigarette. And then popcorn lung started coming back again. So if you hear that phrase, that's what it's from. There are other carcinogens put into your typical e-cigarette, and some include antifreeze and aluminum. Again, I'm not a medical doctor, so I can't tell you whether or not it's good or bad or neither to have antifreeze in your lungs. But as a human being, I don't want antifreeze or aluminum in my lungs. So yeah, I'll just leave you with that. And you will often hear of different products like the Juul, Juul, is a very popular e-cigarette or vape. You will probably, if you're here in Texas like I am, I think you all are, or most of you are, you'll see vaping stores cropping up all over the place. It doesn't matter if you're in rural, small town Texas, or if you're in a larger metropolitan area, you probably see these stores. So there's a lot of ways, a lot of accessibility for people to buy e-cigarettes and vapes, especially here in Texas, because some other states have regulated them much more robustly. But here in Texas so far, they're still pretty much widely available. And so our state legislature hasn't done a ton to regulate vapes, but there have been some national regulations by the Food and Drug Administration where they, I think in 2020, February 2020, the FDA banned flavored nicotine pods. So whereas you used to see a lot of flavors, cherries, and different fruits that may be attractive to children, the FDA banned those, and that federal ban applied to Texas. But with that ban, there has emerged a dangerous secondary market for e-juice, and that is people, they want to put things in their vapes that make them feel good, and so because the FDA is starting to ban what can go in them, they're creating it on their own, and this has been very problematic for law enforcement and public safety. So again, I'm a lawyer by trade, so I want to tell you all some of the Texas state laws that are going to apply to vapes and e-cigarettes. And we're going to look at Health and Safety Code, Section 161.252. Health and Safety Code is a kind of large body of laws directed at health and safety in the state of Texas. These are state laws, so these don't apply in any of the other 49 states. This is the state of Texas. And what the legislature has done is they have combined e-cigarettes with cigarettes and tobacco products. So the law that applies to your traditional cigarettes, whether it be Marlboros, Camels, whatever, that's also going to apply to Juuls and other vaping devices, as well as tobacco products, which might be like a pipe that Sherlock Holmes might use, or like a corncob pipe, or also chewing tobacco, I think dip, snuff, those kind of things. They all fall under this same Health and Safety Code 161.252. So here's what is a criminal offense in the state of Texas. We go through A, you see that subsection A there, and subsection B, and then there's an and in italics. So a little lesson on reading laws here. When it says and like that, Both A and B have to be satisfied in order for there to be a criminal offense. A says that the person must be under 21. And you might be saying, that's surprising. I thought the smoking age was 18. Well, up until 2019, you would have been correct. But our legislature actually changed the age to 21. So now, if you want to use any of these products, cigarette, e-cigarette, or tobacco product, you must be 21 years old. So under 21, it can be a Class C misdemeanor, which we would hear in our municipal courts. So if you're under 21, what is prohibited? We look at subsection B now. Possession, purchase, consumption, or accepting any of these things. So you don't have to be smoking. You can just be in possession of them. You can just purchase them. If you didn't possess or purchase, they were someone else's, but you were to consume or smoke or inhale them, that can be an offense, or just accepting one of these things can be an offense. Now that accepting is interesting. That's probably the one that's the most nuanced. I think that would mean if an individual was with a group of friends and they were passing a cigarette or a Juul around and you accept it, arguably you wouldn't even have to smoke it or do anything. You're just holding it, and that could be a criminal offense. So that's what the law looks like. Another thing, if you use a fake ID, and I keep saying you, I don't mean you, the audience, I just, a person. I mean to say an individual. If an individual uses a fake ID seeking to procure one of these tobacco products, e-cigarettes or cigarettes, that can be a criminal offense as well. So if a person goes in, says, hey, here's my ID, it's a fake, I'm actually 19 years old, and I'm trying to procure one of those things, and the store clerk says, no, you're too young, that can be a criminal offense too, just because I have sought to procure one of these things with a fake ID. There are a few exceptions. This means that if this were to occur, it doesn't fall under the law. It doesn't mean a person cannot get a citation or a ticket. It just means if you go to court, you can raise one of these exceptions. A person shouldn't get a ticket for these things, but these are the exceptions listed. If you're in the U.S. military and you have a valid U.S. military ID, you only need to be 18. That was one of the parts of the law that passed in 2019. They accepted the U.S. military. And then 2 and 3 are pretty kind of like if you're in doing your job duties and you happen to be in possession of some tobacco or e-cigarettes, like you're moving them from one shelf to another because you work at a store, that's okay. And then if you're a decoy in a police sting where they're trying to use an underage kid to go buy tobacco to kind of sting for the like a store, that's an exception as well. The max fine on these is $100, and you're also if convicted, the defendant will also have to take a tobacco or e-cigarette awareness class. So there are some criminal penalties, and this stuff stays on your record. So, it may get expunged down the road, but basically what I would like you to get from this slide is that these are criminal offenses and they have lasting consequences on the defendant. In the law, definitions are extremely important. What is the definition of an e-cigarette? I'm not going to read it here, but I do want you to know that if you would like to know because this is the kind of thing that lawyers argue all the time. This is why you go to law school, because let's say a defendant, your client, whoever is in possession of an e-cigarette and they get charged criminally. You might try to argue that what they had or what the defendant was possessing or smoking or using was not an e-cigarette. And you would go to this definition section to do that. But I got news for you. I read this definition to be extremely, extremely broad. It is going to cover a lot of things. You see a lot of phrasing in here, which just indicates broadness. Any other device, it says on that first line, that means a lot of devices are going to fall under this. If you look at that big uppercase B at the bottom, it says that a component, part, or accessory for the device can be an e-cigarette. So what does that mean? Even if someone has an incomplete, just a component, a part of an e-cigarette, that can fall under the definition, so that they can be criminally charged as well. So what I want you to take away from this slide is that the definition of e-cigarette is very broad. And I think that reflects the legislature's recognition that these things come in a lot of different shapes and sizes. Another interesting aspect to this is drug paraphernalia. And we get the question here at the Education Center a lot, are vapes drug paraphernalia? And I just want to leave you with this. On their own, if someone who is over 21 years old were to purchase a vaping device from a store, on its own, I do not believe it is going to be drug paraphernalia. It's something that's legal if you're over 21, but we can easily get there. It can easily become drug paraphernalia, which is an offense under Health and Safety Code 481.125. A vape can become drug paraphernalia with the correct facts. So let's say someone, like in the picture here, were to put cannabis or marijuana into a vaping device, then it becomes drug paraphernalia because you are using the device to contain or conceal a controlled substance. Really anything in my reading of this law could be drug paraphernalia. I have seen or heard of individuals who have used produce, different fruits, in order to smoke illicit drugs. And in that sense, a lawyer or the state, whoever, could make an argument that that produce, that apple, is drug paraphernalia. Perhaps there's residual marijuana resin on it, and then there could be a charge for drug paraphernalia. So a lot of different things that can happen here. I just wanted to show you some of these laws in the Health and Safety Code that are applicable to vaping and e-cigarettes. In our last couple minutes, I want to talk about vaping's impact on transportation. The big one that's been tricky for law enforcement is that I mentioned earlier that it's tough to know what's in somebody's vape. So if someone were to get stopped on the roadway and they have a vaping device, law enforcement's going to want to know what's in that. And it's kind of an unsettled area of the law right now to know to what extent they can investigate that. Suffice it to say, it's a really tricky legal issue that's happening right now. Is it just, a legal kind of vapor, or did they put some kind of illicit drug in there that may make them impaired and be an intoxicated driver? I don't have any answers for you today. I'm just saying these are some of the issues facing law enforcement. I say that vapors, vegetable glycerin, can cloud the driver's vision. This has actually been a big issue. You remember the picture a few slides ago where the individual had a big plume of smoke coming out of his mouth? Well, and I've seen drivers here in Austin, I'm based in Austin, Texas, who are just filling the cab of their car with vapors, and that can be a serious visual impediment. That can really cloud the driver's vision. And I haven't really seen them, but it's possible that windshield obstruction could be a criminal offense here if there's too many vapors obstructing the windshield. Just some of the issues we're seeing right now, because these are e-cigarettes and vapes are so new. A cognitive distraction, you're manipulating an electronic device. These are complex little machines, and you might have to look at them much like you would a cell phone if you're using them. There's buttons, there's different dials and things, so it can certainly be a distraction. As with nicotine and tobacco, it can cause dizziness, which would be problematic for a driver. And there have also been reports that these devices may explode. And you can go on YouTube and see some videos of vaping devices exploding while the user is using them, and that could also be a problem for driving. It remains to be seen the true impact of e-cigarettes and vaping, and I think the regulators, both at the state and national level, are doing what they can to try to address this public safety issue. I would invite any of you, if I only had 20 minutes, this is typically an hour and 15-minute class. I can certainly talk more. I would invite anyone in the audience to reach out to me at either that phone number or that email address if you would like to know more about vaping, or if you want to just talk about e-cigarettes or whatever, you can feel free to give me a call. Again, thank you to the organizers for having me. Hope you have a great conference, and be safe out there.
I'm the winner. This is Shreen with the TDS Teen Advisory Board. A quick thank you to our presenters and to you for attending this session. Congratulations to the prize winner. You will receive your gift card in the email used to register for the summit. Don't forget to take the survey. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.